Hello, and welcome to Improbable Things. I'm J. Grace Pennington, and this is my podcast where I share 6 improbable thoughts before breakfast, which constitutes 6 thoughts about reading, writing, or storytelling in some form or fashion. So it is early on Thursday morning, and I am up, have my 6 things, and ready to get started. So I actually have updates to share on all 3 of the Firmament books that are currently in various stages of the writing and publishing process. But when I originally wrote them down, I looked at my outline and realized that they were all out of order from where the books actually go. Like they were not in the order that the books are in the series. So I rearranged them to try to keep y'all from being too confused, because I know there's a lot of different things going on here. So all that said, number 1, my update on Eleftheria is that I submitted the files for it to Kindle Direct Publishing. And if you are not a Kindle Direct Publishing author or haven't used the platform before, you may not know that that actually is where you publish both, or rather self-publish both Kindle and paperback books for Amazon. They used to have a different service for paperback, but it's gone now. So even though it's a little bit confusing, their Kindle Direct Publishing also does paperback. So anyway, a little aside for you. But I uploaded all the files for both the ebook and the paperback, cover files, interior files, and they're all ready to go. And as of tomorrow, it will have been 30 days since the last bit of the content was released on Kindle Vella, which means I will be able to officially release the other versions. So basically the actual release date is October 12th. So less than a week away now, but I am going to go ahead and get those files submitted so that they can go through approval and all of that. So hopefully the ebook will be available for pre-order very, very soon now, and then the paperback shortly after. So I'm very excited about that. And yeah, I'm just been anyone who's been waiting on the real ebook version, or my favorite, the paperback version, will finally be able to get those. So number 2, as soon as I'm finished with that, I am going to be going into editing on Humanoid, which is the book that comes next. And I've mentioned a few times that I know I've mentioned that I've gotten some great feedback from my beta readers, and then I've been reading it aloud to my husband. So last night, I didn't finish reading it to him, but I basically got past the actual sort of climax and showdown portion. So almost finished, and that was the part that I definitely needed the most help with, because it was just a really weak climax. There were lots of things about it that were very confusing. And I felt that it just needed a lot of work. Like, it really needed some oomph, and it needed to be more tied into certain things. Anyway, it just needed a massive overhaul. And I know I've mentioned before, my husband has a really good sense of story, and he has lots of great ideas, and we'll be watching shows or movies together, and he'll either predict basically everything even better than I can, and I can predict a lot of things. Or he will know exactly the way that it could be fixed, for the parts that are lacking. And so, yeah, I knew that he'd be able to help me out. So we were up like into the wee hours of the morning discussing this. Like, it was honestly just a super fun time, because once we got going, we're like putting all these ideas back and forth, like spinning these different like plot ideas and all this. Just for hours, we were just up talking about my story and different ways that we could tweak this or that, or maybe completely rework this entire plot line, or and it got a little wild. At one point I was like, I think we're actually ending up with like a completely different book at this point. So then we dialed it back a little bit, where I'm not literally completely almost starting from scratch, but there are a lot of plot changes that I think are going to be made. And we did not solve all the problems last night, because I think at the end it was like almost 1 a.m. So I was like, well, we just really need to go to bed. I'll try to figure out the rest of this later. So I have a lot more planning to do, but my mind is just full of ideas. And there are certain things that we did sort of decide and establish. So I feel like really good progress was made. But beyond that, it was just so much fun to go over this and work on it with my husband and just workshop it in person with someone else. Like, I don't even think I've ever done that before. I've discussed stories with lots of writer friends and come up with ideas together, but it's always been like over some kind of messaging or long distance in some form. And so just to sit there together and have him take the time to go over my story and just bounce all these ideas off each other, it was absolutely so much fun. It just made me want to do it again with the next story as soon as possible. So number 3, on that note, my update on intoxication is that I am almost finished with the first draft. I passed. I'm trying to even remember now. I don't even remember. I think I want to say like either 46 or 47,000 words yesterday. So really getting close to the end now, just a few thousand left either way. And I definitely think that one can use some work in the climax as well, although it's not as bad. But the falling action, I am really happy with how it's turning out, and just for the crew having to sort of sort through all that's happened and figure out where they're going to go from here. I'm actually enjoying writing that part. So I'm hopeful that these last few thousand words are going to fly by, and I should actually be able to finish it this week, which is super exciting. It's like a week ahead of my original schedule. So, and if I make it, which at this point I'm very confident that I will, it very well may be the first time that I've written a first draft start to finish completely on schedule and without taking any breaks or long lapses in the process. And that for me feels like such a huge milestone, because it's a really hard thing for me to do. Clearly, with all the books I've written, I've never done it this way before. And I think that the process will really benefit from it having been put together in one chunk rather than me having taken a long break and then having to come back to it. So I'm really proud of myself for that, and really hopeful that next week I'm going to come around and tell you all that it's already been finished for days. And I'm just really excited about this one. So number 4, my baby, I call her my baby, but my littlest is really, she's 16 months, so she's not a baby at all. She is a toddler for sure, and definitely thinks she's a big girl because she has older sisters. So anyway, she has always loved books and loved like looking at them, but lately she's been bringing them to me to read to her, and it's just so cute. My husband has taken some really cute pictures of us reading together. So she'll, like the other day, I was just doing some chores around the house, and she brings me the Amelia Bedelia book, which the version that we have is like almost as big as her. Like, it's a pretty big paperback, and she comes bringing it to me, and she holds it up, and she doesn't talk yet, so she just holds it up and goes, eh, 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 eh. So I took it. I was like, okay, you want to read this? And she instantly ran back to the couch and starts patting the couch for me to sit there. And she's just like, ah, ah. So I sat on the couch, and she sat in my lap, and we were reading it, and she's pointing to different things on the page. And it was so, so sweet. And then same at the library. She always has only really ever paid attention to the toys when we were there. But this last week that when we went, she kind of noticed the books, I think almost for the first time. And she started running to the shelves, taking books. She took a book, and then she went and found like a spot on the floor, and she just sat down and just held the book up to me. Just like, okay, found my spot. We got our book. We're ready. And it just melted my heart, because obviously I am such a book girl, and to see that coming out in my daughters. I know I've talked a lot of times about how much that means to me, but even my little bitty not so baby wanting to be read to and look at books and being so like particular about where we sit, and I'm just so proud, and it's been adorable to see. And number 5, this is not exactly currently reading because I finished it yesterday, but I wanted to go ahead and talk about it. My most recently read, I guess I would say, in this slot. Anyway, so I just read a book called Lapsing into a Comma by Bill Walsh. And it is a style and usage book. So it's, going over grammar, common mistakes people make, and just general usage, syntax, sentence structure, all those types of things. And I've read a lot of those kinds of books in the past because one of my brothers for a while was a huge grammar nut, and I don't know if he's that into it anymore, but he wanted to read some like grammar and usage books, and so I got all the ones we had from the library and read them because he was pretty little, and so I wanted to make sure that they were okay for him or whatever. So I read a whole bunch of them back in the day, and this was one I'd heard mentioned several times but had never read, and I just saw it at my library and just kind of grabbed it on impulse. And I really do enjoy style and usage books in general, and then especially if the writer does have a sense of humor. They can be so much fun because they can actually, like, it maybe doesn't sound like that enjoyable of a read, but these books can not only be really entertaining, but I just feel like I learned so much. And so obviously it's going to be most useful for someone like me who does a lot of writing, or for a professional writer or editor. But I think honestly, probably like anyone can benefit from books like these because we all do writing in some form, even if it's just emails or something, and it just makes you aware of a lot of really common mistakes. And I feel like in this book, he did a great job of explaining things really simply and really well. And like basically the only grammar I know thoroughly is what I learned from Schoolhouse Rock. And so I never have really officially studied it. And so there's a lot of things I really don't know what a lot of the technical terms mean in grammar. I have no idea how to diagram a sentence or anything like that. But I can still understand the logical basis behind a lot of the rules. And so he goes at a lot of these things from that standpoint where you can look at a sentence and he can say, like, it doesn't make sense, and here's why. Because this word, is actually modifying this when it should be that because of its placement in the sentence. And that sounds super nerdy and not entertaining when I just said it. But he really does have a great sense of humor and a great writing style himself. And I honestly was laughing out loud several times in this book. So I don't know if it will be for everyone, but I really did enjoy it, and really would recommend it for just kind of a basic overview of a lot of really common mistakes. If you have any interest in writing or doing a lot of writing, or I don't know, it honestly was really enjoyable, and I'm glad that I stumbled across it and picked it up. So number 6, I wanted to talk a little bit this week about trying to harness procrastination as fuel for productivity, because that's something I've been doing a lot of, especially recently. And I may have talked about those before. I don't know. I can't remember, but it's really been on my mind lately because especially while I've been doing this first draft, I know I've talked about this before. It is so hard. It is so hard for me to sit down and actually write when it comes to the drafting process. Like, it can be so almost miserable at times. Like, I so do not want to do it, and it's so draining, and it's so difficult because what I'm writing is completely imperfect, and my perfectionism does not like that one bit. So it's draining on multiple different levels, like creatively, and then knowing that I'm going to have to fix it later, but yet being willing to leave it like this for the time being. And it just takes a lot of energy, and it's just a unique difficulty to it. And so I'm a procrastinator just in general, but especially when it comes to something that I so have this internal urge to not do, I am going to basically do anything else first. And so one thing I've really learned over the years to try to do to, I guess, work with myself on that is to, instead of using that procrastination just to scroll Facebook or do nothing, or even, I don't know, like just to be aware of how I'm going to use that. Because in a weird way, procrastination um, does summon a lot of energy. Like it sort of creates a lot of energy that you're investing into not doing something specific. And so I've actually found that energy can be put to good use. And so if I'm going to procrastinate, I try to make sure I'm actually, like I said, harnessing that energy. And so the main thing I've been doing lately is if I sit down to my work and I get my computer, all of that, and I just am so driven to not write right now, I'm going to use that time and energy to do something. Generally, it's going to be marketing. So I have a lot of different book marketing things that I'm doing these days. And that honestly is something I really don't want to do either because I don't like doing sales. And, honestly, a lot of the marketing stuff is just to put it bluntly, not that much fun to do. But when it's time to sit down and write, I would still rather do that. So I'm trying to use that urge and that impulse and say, okay, I want to put off having to work on writing. So I am going to go through and I'm going to submit my books to these ad sites, or I'm going to create some promotion graphics, which I really hate doing because I'm so not a graphic designer, or I'm going to post my Vellas to these Kindle Vella Facebook promotion groups or whatever, all of those kinds of things. I'm going to submit my audiobook promo codes to these free sites, or just all these different tasks that can be really tedious and that I often really don't feel like doing. I would definitely prefer to be doing something else than a lot of this, but it is necessary and it is important. And I am still technically working on writing and on my writing career in general. So I'm trying to just be aware of that lately and aware of where I'm putting that energy that's being just formed by my aversion to doing the actual putting words on the screen that I'm supposed to be doing. And I do still force myself to get around to that. Obviously, like I said, I've been able to stay on track and get at least 1,300 words done Monday through Saturday for this entire time. So I'm still getting